Coming up in this video. Welcome to HD Camping Adventures. Today we're putting the new Pomoly Chalet 70 Pro to the test. This marks the third hot tent in our collection and we're excited to see how it performs. It's our very first time setting it up, so stick around as we explore its features and share our experience using it during an entire weekend adventure. Whether you're curious about this tent or just love winter camping, you won't want to miss this. In our search to find a great spot to test our new hot tent, we drive through a bit of snow, but it's quite wet and slushy, so we decide to make our way to lower elevation to have a drier spot to set up. We find a suitable spot on our favorite river. We were hoping to catch a bit of decent weather after a very rainy start to the winter, but unfortunately Mother Nature had different plans. Our first priority is clear. We need to set up some shelter and get out of the rain before we can fully dive into setting up camp. Now that we have shelter, the rest of our setup falls into place. It's finally time to open up the new tent. This is our first look at what's inside, and as expected, there aren't really any instructions, but we're pretty confident we can figure it out as we go. Along with the tent, there are two small bags containing the pegs and poles. The floor of the tent is made from a heavier tarp-like material with a fire-resistant section where the stove will sit. We end up moving the tent a few times before we find the most suitable spot. They give you some pretty heavy-duty tent pegs. 12 are included in total, which is the exact amount you need to set up the tent. You may want to pick up some spares just in case. setup is very similar to our Pomoly Stovehut tent. You start by hammering pegs into all four corners. Like many of their tents, this one is also not freestanding. The tent is held up using pegs and guy lines. You get 2 straight poles that sit at each end of the tent. Guy lines on each end of the tent keep the poles from collapsing in. There are 2 flaps on each side that cover ventilation windows. The stove jack is located in the back corner of the tent and has a waterproof cover in case you want to use the tent without a stove. As mentioned before, here's a look at the 2 ventilation windows inside. Both ends of the tent have screens and doors for entry. There is a fire-resistant section for the stove. However, in our experience, the embers and ash don't always contain themselves to this small area. We have several welding blankets and we use one to further protect the tent floor from any damage. The tent is 6.5 feet by 8 feet. We decide to sleep across the width of the tent, which fits our air mattress and gives us plenty of room inside. If you're new to our channel, we use the medium-sized Pomoly Dweller stove. This is our 3rd season using it and we're still very happy with it. There are lots of options for good stoves out there, some more tailored towards backpacking. This one is a bit heavier and designed for vehicle camping. Here's a look at the setup. If you have any questions about the tent, feel free to leave them in the comments. We use a heat-powered fan that sits on top of the stove. In our opinion, these are essential. They do a great job at circulating the heat throughout the tent. We also keep a carbon monoxide detector in the tent while the stove is in use. After all that work, it's time to get the fire going outside. Unfortunately, as it has been raining all day, all the wood is quite wet. We did our best to keep the fire going, but the relentless rain had other ideas. Thankfully, we could retreat to our hot tent where we stayed warm and dry, enjoying the fire in comfort. We use a mix of wood and compressed logs which burn longer. As the fire roars to life, the inside of the hot tent quickly transforms into a warm and cozy haven. It's so toasty that there's no need for a jacket, no matter how cold it gets outside. We decided to make some tea on the stove, which is designed to handle small kettles and pans. The stove heats up our kettle in no time. The rest of the evening is spent relaxing as we play some cards and enjoy the warmth of the fire in our new hot tent. It's the perfect way to wind down before heading to bed. We wake up to a cold morning, but the rain has finally stopped, revealing a beautiful start to the day. At this time of year, the sun doesn't rise until around 8 a.m., making the early hours feel especially peaceful. As always, our first priority when we wake up is to get the coffee brewing. On this trip, we spotted dozens of eagles and other birds of prey soaring through the skies. Unfortunately, our current cameras aren't the best for capturing them, so you'll just have to take our word for it. It was an incredible sight. Of course, we decided to have our coffee right on the river. We also noticed a few salmon lingering around from the spawning season, which explains why there are so many eagles around. It's time to pack up and head home, and overall, we're really impressed with the Pomoly Chalet 70 Pro. Size-wise, it sits perfectly between our other two hot tents, retaining heat exceptionally well while still offering plenty of space to relax comfortably. Despite the rain pouring all day and night, the tent held up without any leaks, just a bit of condensation, which is completely normal. For winter camping with 1 or 2 people, we'd highly recommend the Chalet 70 as a reliable and cozy option. If you're interested in more hot tenting and overland adventures, be sure to check out some of our other videos on the channel, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of our future adventures. We've got plenty more to come.